This is one video in a series of videos that show how to use Oracle Apex 5 to build a working web application, a prototype. It won't be fully featured, but it'll be a working application that uses a database in Oracle XE. There are earlier video series in YouTube for previous versions of Apex. You can work along with the video by getting the scripts that are available at the URL shown here. Be sure and make the URL case sensitive, so put a capital D, not a lowercase d. You can also, as an alternative, request the scripts be emailed by going to the second link and using the contact page to request the scripts. Hi, I'm logged in this case as Debbie, and I could take a quick look at our team development to-do list and see that we have some other forms and some edits to some views that we need to do. So if I go to the report area and do a sort on not started or not completed, so I have things like create a master detail detail for students' attendances and evaluations, create a master detail detail for team students and workshops, and also revise some views. So as Debbie, I'm going to work on this form here. So let's take a look at the data model before I do that, just to remind you of how why we might do this. What I want to be able to do is show student and evaluation data, and at the same time show student and attendance data. So I'm going to go to Application Builder. I'm going to click Create Page and select Form and Master Detail Form. Then I'm going to select Students, and then I'm going to select Student Major ID and move it over, really just to emphasize that you don't necessarily have to include every field from a table. So you could leave Student Major ID in the display area if you want to, but I've moved it over to the available columns and removed it from the display columns. I'll go ahead and click Next, and I will pick Attendances as the first detail section, and click Next, and select my primary key, and click Next. And then I'll stay with the defaults here, but it doesn't really mean anything because I don't intend to use this master detail detail for data entry. So I'll just click Next. And then, yes, we do want a master report. And we want to edit the detail section on a separate page, so we don't want that section to have like an Add Row button. Then I'm going to pause the video and modify the page numbers and titles. So I've changed the page numbers, but if you're going to do that, especially if you're doing something like a master detail, well, even with a form and report where you have two pages that essentially work together, you want to make sure you change both numbers. If I change this number to 45 and overlook the other page numbers, this might be a 12 and the next one 13. So I wanted to modify the page numbers. I do this maybe not in an application development environment, but in a teaching environment I do it a lot, so I can identify the pages I just created that I wanted to talk about in class. So you may or may not want to do that. But I've modified the page numbers 45, 46, and 47, and I've changed the page titles. I'll go ahead and click Next. And I do want a new navigation item. And I will go ahead and click Create. So I've come to the home page of the application. I click Student Information. That will get me the report. I'm going to click on Barbara Cry, and now I see my master detail. I'm going to pause and edit this and show the student ID, the primary key value. So now I can see the primary key value. Actually, I'll have to pause again. I want to get rid of this new label and make it student ID. So now I have a better label. I'm now going to go edit this page and add another detail section down here. So I'll edit the page. I will right click on body content, and I want to create a region. And then that's highlighted, so I'll come over here and I'll call this evaluations. Then I'll click on the source and click this code editor. And then I will click the, wait a second, I need to go back. I want this not to be static content. I want it to be in a classic report format. And so I'll select that, and then it's asking me for my data source, the SQL. Then I click this icon for the code editor. And when I do that, what I didn't see before is this hammer, which is the query builder. So I'll go ahead and click that and have Apex help me build this query. So I'm going to select students, and then I'll select evaluations, and then I will select the evaluatees view that was created in a previous video example. So I'll need to join these. It'll be student ID as evaluator to evaluator ID, and then evaluatee ID to evaluatee ID. This being a view that we created and joined information from the evaluation and student table in an earlier video. I'm going to show the student ID and the student last name, and then eval ID, and then the semester and year, and then I'll show the evaluatee ID, first name, last name. I'll modify the aliases, but pause the video while I do that. So I've made those changes. I'm going to click return, and I have my SQL statement, and I'll click OK. I'll save my changes and I'll run the page. So now I see Barbara Cry, and I see the workshop attendance records, and then I have my evaluation section, but if you'll notice, everybody is listed. So we still have something we need to do. Attendance in workshops is filtered on the foreign key value for this student, 5001. I need to do the same type of thing for this second section. So I will edit the page, and I will edit the SQL. So I'll go back to the code editor, and what I want to do is add an AND clause. So I want student ID is equal to, and then I want to set it to the master page item for student ID. So I'm going to do a colon because I'm referring to an item within the page, and then I can do P, and the page I believe is 45, and then STD ID is the name of the field. That would be the page number plus the field name to make the page item name. I'll go ahead and click OK. Save that and run that. And I scroll down and I have no data, so obviously I set my filter incorrectly. I believe I said page 45. I'll come back in here and edit it again and do page 46 and save and run. So now when I scroll down, I do see the evaluations, and I'm seeing just the evaluations for student ID 5001, which is Barbara Cry, as we see in the main form. So now I have a Masterdetaildetail. I want to add some things to this. I want to add something to this. I want to be able to click on the evaluation ID and have it take me to the evaluation master detail form. So we're going to add a hyperlink. We'll edit this, and just take a second to realize that over here in the rendering page we have the main form, which is the student data. We have the workshop attendance, which is the first detail section, and then we have evaluations. I want to go into the columns for the second detail section, which is evaluations, and select eval ID. When I select that over here, I can come over to the properties and change this from plain text to link. When I do that, something showed up here. Let me go back to text, and you might watch what we have down near the end of the frame. When I select link, then I have to define the link. And right now there is no link defined. So I'll click that and I get a dialog box. And this is the link builder. By default, the action is to go to a page in the application, which is what we want. We want to select the page. So I click and look at my list, and I'm thinking this name is, I didn't get all my names quite clear, but I think it's evaluation items. I can always come back and change that if I need to. When I select that, then I'm going to see page items from that target application page. I want to select the primary key, and then I want to have it locate it as in the action that I'm going to get when I click on the link. I want it to find the equivalent eval ID that I have in my detail section of the current form. So I go ahead and click OK. After I've set up the target page, I need to add link text. You'll get an error message till you do that. And I want it to continue to display the value for evaluation ID. So that's what I've defined here, and you see that as one of your options if you click that bullet list. So I'll save and run this. When I scroll down, I now see just barely a slight difference in color, but I have a link. So this is evaluation ID 32. I can click on that. It will open the evaluation form to eval ID 32. I can click on 3013, and I'm seeing 3013. So I can navigate from one form or one page to another page. I now want to come up here and add replace the ID with the display of the workshop name, which is something we've done earlier. I'll just step through quickly and do that. I want to come up to Workshop, Columns, and Workshop ID. Select it on the left side, and then here, instead of plain text, I want it based on a list of values. And then once I do that, then I have to define that, which would be it's a shared component. And from that I can select and get my workshop list. So I don't have a workshop list. I'm going to back out of this and go get it. Or go build one, I should say. So I'll go to Application. I'll leave this. I'll have to come back and make that change again. Shared components. I want to do a list of values. And I'll create one for workshops. From scratch. Workshop list dynamic. I'll use the wizard. Working with workshops. My display column will be the workshop name. My return value will be workshop ID. And now I have that. So I go back to my application, and I can run the application, or I could, at this point, because I know the page number pretty well, I could just come down here and go straight into the page designer for that page and go back to what I was doing before, which is in the first detail section, I want to replace the display of workshop ID based on a list, which I just built in the shared components, and use my new LOV. So save that, run that, and now I'm seeing the workshop name. I would also probably want to edit the column heading. So I've added a hyperlink here. What I want to do now is do the same thing for workshop attendance. So I'll edit this, but since I'm displaying with an LOV, what I'm going to do is click and do create virtual column, and that gets named, and the type is link, which is actually what I want. The heading is going to be View Workshop. Come down and do the target, define. We open a page, we have to find that page, and that would be workshop data. And within that master or that simple form, I want to match the workshop ID with the current workshop ID in my detail section of the current master detail form. So I go ahead and click that. I need my link text, and I'm going to just type in some text. I'll save and run this. So now I'm running this. Here I have the View Workshop heading. Here's Effective Leadership. If I click that, it's going to open up the workshop form. I got the wrong form because I want the master detail. So I'll edit that. So I'll come back to my target and pick a different page. Getting a little lost here in some of my pages. I believe it's going to be a report of workshops and then a master detail, page number 24. That includes attendance. Once I've made that change, I need to come back and reassign so that I look within that page in the workshop ID page item for the value of the workshop ID in the current form. So I'll go ahead and click OK. I'll save and I'll run that. So now when I click Effective Leadership, clicking here, it opens up Effective Leadership and showing me the attendances. I'm going to do something a little different for the main form. I'm going to add a button that will look at the student ID and go to the student form if we want to modify student data. So I'm going to click on Edit the Page and go to the Student section. And what I want to do here is right-click on Student Data, and I want within that area, that region, to create a button. When I do, I see a button appear here in the grid area as well as the properties for that button over to the right. And so this will be Edit Student, or yeah, I'll leave it like that. Then I want to scroll down and I'm looking for the behavior, which is not to submit a page, but to redirect to a page in this application. Once again, I get my target and I need to define that. So what I want it to do is when we click that button, I want it to go to student data. And once again, selecting the primary key, student ID, and finding a match for the current student ID value in our master detail. I'll go ahead and click OK. And I will save that and run the page. So now I have a button here, Edit Student, and I'm looking at student ID 5001. So if I click Edit Student, it's going to open up to that particular student form. So I'm going to do a few other things. I'm going to actually remove the delete and save. I could make these fields display only so that it doesn't look like you can enter data. Essentially, I'm turning this form into a master detail report. So I'll remove the create as well. I'm going to edit, and let's see, I'm in the student area, so I can select the delete button. Now I think I want to do a right click and I'll delete that. And I will also do the same thing for the save button. Down in workshops we have a create. I'm going to get rid of that. I would make a comment here. I'm doing something here that's different in this video series that I've done in previous ones. In previous videos I have shown how you could work with that create button, which launches a separate page. So you might want to look at some of the later videos around video 20 in previous versions of Apex if you want to see a variation on how I'm doing this. But this is different than what I've done in the past video series. So I'll get rid of that, and again I will save, and I'll run this page. So now I just have the edit student. I still have my navigation buttons. I no longer see the create. So this is really for informational purposes and not meant for maintaining data. If I want to do that, I will click on one of these links to go to the form where I can do the editing. One other little thing I would just make a passing demonstration of is drag this button and place it visually. For example, I could take it, let me zoom out a little bit. I could take this and drag it into the delete placement and save and run this and change the order. So that's, or the appearance. This is just a very simple illustration of how you might use the grid section to rearrange objects within your page. In the next video, we're going to take a second look at some of the views that we have created and modify those, how those views work. In other words, go in and edit the SQL.